So I've been told that dark beer in summer is a no-go. So today we're brewing a lighter version of a Belgian golden ale that's crisp, refreshing, and perfect for those sunny days. But there's also another thing about today's homebrew that is also a little bit different. So if you had followed along in my previous video where I had my second ever craft beer brewed at a professional brewery, which was also a lighter version of a Belgian golden ale, you would know that I had some homework from that day. So not only am I giving you exclusive access to the homebrew recipe that inspired my second ever professional craft beer, but I am also showing you behind the scenes access of some of my recipe development process and for something that's going to decide the fate of a real craft beer. As you can see, I've got the ingredients in front of me right here for today's recipe. So this is my homebrew version of the Belgian golden ale with a twist. So it's inspired by strong Belgian golden ales that are around 7-8%, but instead I've just scaled down the amount of malt to get around 5%. Now, this beer is meant to be more drinkable, more refreshing, and a bit more crisp, perfect for those sunny days, which is why I'm going through trialing this beer at the moment to not only add to my portfolio, but also to potentially help some of those venues who are apprehensive about a dark beer to give them something, to offer them something that they might want to take instead. Today, I am making an 11 litre batch of this beer, aiming for 5% out of the fermenter, aiming for an original gravity of 1044.
For the water chemistry of today's beer, I'm aiming for a water profile to suit a pale beer, balanced between malt and hops and with a soft mouthfeel. And this is today's target profile, all added in before the mash. The base of today's recipe is a large proportion of Pilsner malt. This will make sure that the malty character of the beer stays nice and crisp. There is also a small amount of malt enhancing malt. Yes, you heard that correctly. Malt enhancing multi-malt, such as aromatic or malanoidin. This will give the beer a little bit of a body and will also add a little bit of malty character and also some slight honey notes as well. We'll be mashing at 76 degrees Celsius for an hour to balance fermentability and body so that the beer isn't too thin, but also retains that nice drinkable character. This is just me making sure I've got every last bit of flour and crushed grain going into the beer. I'll then mash out for about 10 minutes at around 76 degrees Celsius. The mash is done and it's now time to lift the grains out so we can get the wort ready to boil. For the hops today, I'm using just a single bittering addition for 60 minutes, giving around 37 IBUs. I would usually use Styrian Golding for this beer due to its mild, floral, earthy, herbal and spicy character, perfect for European style beers, but the new homebrew shop that I'm using didn't have them, so I decided to use Fuggle, which is a very similar hop. But then I had some hops left over from the Pro Brew Day, so I am actually using leftover Magnum hops. If you're playing along at home, you can use whatever you want, but I would usually use Styrian Golding for this, but today I'm using Magnum. Magnum is a new hop for me, and one good way to get an idea of what new hops you encounter taste like or smell like, or the aromas and characteristics you get from them, is to do some hop rubbing and make hop tea. So I've got a spare hop pellet here, hopefully that shows up alright in my mug. So what I like to do is basically get this hop, squeeze it between your fingers, and then basically give it a smell, give it a whiff, and you kind of get an idea of what the aromas are. And then what you can also do is you can get some boiling water, add it in, mix it up, and almost make like a little bit of a hop tea, and then you get a little bit of an idea of what characteristics you get out of the hop once it's been added to the boiling water. With 15 minutes to go in the boil, I added in half a Delta Flock tablet. And then with 10 minutes to go, I added in some yeast nutrient, and of course I put the immersion wort chiller in to sterilize.
So here is a sample of the wort that I took before I added the hops in. It's so helpful to have a taste of it because you get a bit of an idea of what the beer is going to taste like. So it's not always definite, doesn't give you the full picture. It's very sweet and malty, of course, but I'm going to give it a go and see if we can discern anything about what this beer is going to taste like, at least from the malt side of things. So mildly sweet, a little bit of touch of honey there, which I think is that aromatic melanoidin style of malt. Just that little bit of that we added in, just to give that little bit of that maltiness. It gives this nice little honey vibe, adds to that little bit of subtle sweetness to the beer, but without taking away from that crisp and refreshing element, which I really love about this beer. Just enough maltiness in there to give it some flavor as well.
The beer was then chilled for about 15 to 20 minutes using the immersion wort chiller, giving my veggie patch, or more likely the weeds, a good water in the process. If you want to find out how a dry hop turns out in a beer such as this one, in my upcoming tasting video. And if you want to keep following along the journey of this craft beer from homebrew to pro brew, then don't forget to hit the bell icon, hit the like button, and to subscribe. Speaking of dry hop, for this beer I would recommend a slight underpitch at about 5.5 million cells per mil of wort to get some estery character into that beer, to get some of that Belgianness. In the past, I have used Yeast 3522, the Belgian Ardennes strain. I think this is a great strain to use with this beer because of the delicate and subtle estery notes that this yeast produces. So it still gives the beer that Belgianness, but it still maintains that drinkability. But of course, being the day after the Pro Brew Day, I just used some leftover yeast from the brewing of my craft beer. The leftover yeast was just an open packet, folded shut, held together by a rubber band, and stuck in the freezer overnight. Now I'm sure there's nothing that could possibly go wrong reusing yeast that have been refrozen like this. For the dry hop, I went with about 1.5 grams per litre of Motorwekker, or Belgian-style hops. I absolutely love this hop, and it does work well in quite a number of beers. So the reason I used it for the dry hop for this beer was because of its lemon lime and almost refreshing type citrusy character. I think this will pair really well with what I'm trying to do with this beer. I'm going to ferment this batch of beer at 22 degrees Celsius for 3 days. Then I'm going to raise it to 27 degrees for a diacetyl rest for about 4 days before cold crashing for a day and then kegging and bottling. In the keg, I'm going to aim for a target volume of about 2.4, so we'll be looking to carbonate at 12 psi.
Got any thoughts for future brews or potential videos that you'd like me to produce? Then put them down in the videos below. And I'd also be interested to know, would you dry hop a beer like this? Drop a comment below. I'd love to hear from you. And until next time, you can explore some more craft beer here. Cheers!